Hi, welcome to our series Do FIX Differently. In today's episode, I want to just delve into the FIX protocol a little bit more, peel back the onion, if you like, in terms of some of the various different layers of FIX to open everybody's eyes up to the idea of perhaps using FIX itself in a slightly different way to how you've traditionally known it. FIX itself is actually quite a rich protocol, and what we're going to do in this episode is just walk you through this diagram here that we've taken from the FIX Trading Community website, which lays out various different layers of FIX. And I'll just point out some interesting areas as we go through it. So first of all, you can see that there are 4 layers to the protocol here. There's application, encoding, session, and transport. Now, if you were thinking that I understand what FIX is, it's just this tag value pair, and it's, I put it over a TCP/IP session. And actually, when you look at this diagram, you realize that there's far more options available to you. And that's really what we want to try to explore. So let's go through them one at a time. First of all, we start off in the application layer. So this is probably the more traditional bit, the familiar piece for most people. You choose a protocol version, FIX 4.2, 4.4, 5.0, Service Pack 2. And you go onto the FIX Trading Community website or any other dictionary out there on the internet, and you see a series of messages, fields, enumerations, and so on and so forth. And you choose you construct the messages that you actually want to pass back and forth to customers. More recently, FIX Trading Community actually released FIX Latest, and really that's let's call it a superset of all of the fields and messages that people can use. It's kind of recognizing that people can easily choose fields from higher versions of the FIX protocol, which you've always been able to do. Now it's just easier just to refer to it as latest instead of start talking about extension packs. We have another video on FIX Latest if you're interested. So the application layer is really about assembling your content, what it is that you're trying to say in that particular message as it goes back and forth. Then you need to encode that message ready for it to go onto the wire. Now, the traditional way of doing this is tag value. So I have a tag, I have an equals, and a value, and then I put it on my SOH delimiter at the end. This is probably, I don't know the strict number, but I'm going to say very, very close to 95+% of all of the FIX messages that you ever see. It's very, very standard, certainly for the interactive point-to-point connections. But there are lots of alternatives, and we want to just kind of explore them here for you. First up is FIX Fast. Now, you may have heard about this. It's very suited for market data. That's originally where it was designed for. It's really about a broadcast protocol, trying to make that nice and efficient. Lots of exchanges have looked at it in the past. Some of them actually use their own offset-based protocol, but FIX Fast, nonetheless, is a FIX-supported market data protocol that's out there for people to use if they choose. Next up, we have FIX ML. So FIX ML is actually an XML representation of a FIX message. Now, you might think about that and say, well, hang on, XML tends to be quite a bloated protocol. That's going to make it really, really big, and that's certainly true. And I wouldn't recommend it for any sort of latency-sensitive area. It is, however, very well used in derivatives, post-trade, settlement clearing, where we are not latency sensitive. And actually, there's a lot of complexity, particularly around doing things like describing contracts or describing instruments that we've actually traded. FIX ML is actually a really good way of doing it because you have a lot of granularity, a lot of areas to help people understand and describe things really well. Next up, you have a series of other encodings, which are actually reasonably new. These are binary encodings. Now, these binary encodings are really FIX Trading Community's reaction to the growing popularity of some of the binary or native protocols that you see from various different exchanges. So, for example, CBOE has its own native protocols. NASDAQ has all of its trading protocols like OUCH. And so on and so forth, and a lot of other exchanges have as well. And these binary protocols are really a reaction to that, saying, well, look, you could just use the same content that everybody is aware of from the FIX dictionary layer and put that into some sort of binary encoding. So FIX actually have 3 of these out there, and you get to choose which ones is more suitable for you. The first one is SBE, Simple Binary Encoding. They also have Google Protocol Buffers. And they also have Abstract Syntax Notation ASN.1. The details of these I'm not going to go into. You can go and find them on the FIX Trading Community website for more information. But at a very, very high level, the reason why these things are much faster than the traditional tag value pairs is that they're offset based. So there's a mapping between all of the various different data types that you see in a traditional tag value representation towards a binary encoding version. And then you receive a message and you simply chop it up according to the length of that particular data type. That's the way most of them work. But again, go and take a look at the FIX Trading Community website for more information on the binary protocols. Finally, there's also a JSON representation of FIX. Now, this doesn't quite feel expected almost from the FIX Trading Community. Actually, this is an attempt to help people with their internal representations and internal web APIs around FIX in particular. So a lot of firms, when they bring in a FIX message into a firm, they'll have it in the classic tag value pair, and then they'll try to convert it into some other object, and that internal object then moves around their internal systems. JSON is a really, really good way of building and representing objects and moving it around various different systems. And that's really what this is designed for. It's a way of you using FIX dictionary data internally, passing it around as a JSON object in your internal systems. So that's something perhaps you can think about internally rather than building your own bespoke objects. So that's the encoding layer. So we've built our content, we've encoded it. Now we need to think about putting it on the wire, and that's where the session and the transport come in. And I deal with these in slightly the opposite order from the way that they're represented, and deal first of all with the transport. So this is physically, how does the message move from one place to another? There's a number of different options here. Broadly, they are in two camps. There is the TCP/IP, which is a point-to-point connection. So I'm sending something to Rob over there, and Rob's going to send something back to me, and that's a TCP/IP connection. It's the traditional way that most point-to-point connections have been done. There's also multicast. So I am broadcasting something to a lot of participants all at once. Okay, so that's multicast or it's UDP. Obviously, it's suitable for things like market data. It's not really suitable for one-to-one connections. The final one on transport that I really want to highlight here is FIX S. Now, FIX S is a secure version of the FIX layer. So this is FIX over TLS. TLS is a way of encrypting messages. It's highly used in web security. So when you're looking at a HTTPS site that's being encrypted, all of the traffic from your browser to the back end is being encrypted. And TLS is one of those encryption mechanisms. And so the idea of FIX S is that you use a very similar approach. You encrypt the data and you send that over to your counterparty on the other side. They then have the public key to actually unencrypt it on the other side. This is actually a replacement for something that FIX started a long time ago, which was the internal encryption within the FIX messages, something that's not actually very widely used. This gives you a much better way of encrypting messages across a wire. So that's the physical transport. But once you have the physical transport, you actually need to create a session on top of that transport. And that's the final section to deal with here. So there's a lot of different ways of creating sessions. Most people will be familiar with the idea of FIX 4.2 or 4.4 sessions, the standard logon message, the heartbeats, the resends, the reconnects, and so on and so forth. And then there's FIX T. Now, FIX T was introduced at the time of FIX 5.0. Really, it's the idea of splitting out the application messaging layer from the session layer. And you see that continued now into later versions as well. Just as FIX Trading Community have recognized that there's a need for lower latency on the encoding side, they've also recognized that there's a need for lower latency on the session side as well. And so recently they brought out FIX P, which is the performance layer for the session stuff. And so this is a much more high performance version of the session layer. So at a very high level, that's a quick run through of the onion of the FIX protocol, application encoding, session, and transport. The purpose of kind of running you through this in this particular series is to really open up your eyes to the fact that there's way more out there than perhaps you've been traditionally thinking about. And I'd encourage you specifically to think about various different encoding types and whether this might be suitable for your particular market. If you're looking for some sort of low latency and you're tempted to build some sort of native interface, go and have a look at the binary protocols. That might save you a lot of time and energy. If you're looking at some sort of internal representation of a fixed message, go and have a look at the JSON representation or the JSON encoding of the fixed messages, because that may save you some time as well. Hope this helps. Please, as always, leave a comment below. Let us know whether this is helpful for you. If there's anything else you'd like us to cover in this particular series. And don't forget to subscribe for further updates of doing FIX differently.